What do you do when you just can't stop being mad at your spouse? I've talked before on this podcast about those narratives, those things that you think about your spouse, and they keep coming up over and over and over again. Why are they even there? One reason that they keep coming back over and over again is that it just feels good to be angry, and it feels good to be a victim. That might sound weird to some people, like, how can it feel good to be a victim? Whenever you have somebody else to blame for the problems in your life, that feels more comfortable to us as people than taking ownership and actually doing something about the problems in our world and in our relationship. So being angry and being a victim feels a lot more comfortable. It feels a lot easier than not doing that. All that to say that everybody, pretty much everybody, I haven't polled everybody, but pretty much everybody has recurring hard thoughts and hard feelings about their spouse. The point is not that you're weird or that they're necessarily even dangerous, but the point is it's all in how you handle those feelings and thoughts. So today I want to talk about what I do that has helped me over the years take these thoughts captive and not let them spiral into something that is completely unhelpful and would drive a wedge between me and Sandy. Welcome to the Christian Marriage Podcast, the only podcast on the entire internet about Christian marriage that I host. I'm Nick. I'm a Christian marriage coach. There was a period today where, for almost no reason, I had these recurring thoughts just stuck in my head. And I had to figure out, I had to choose how I was going to deal with them. It happens all the time. And there have been things throughout the years that have been routinely helpful to me. So I wanted to share them with you so that maybe they would be helpful to you and you can escape those downward spirals of thinking and feelings about your spouse. So what have I found helpful in dealing with these recurring narratives where you get stuck in some hard feelings? Number one, spiritual warfare. It is a foundation of helpfulness to me in these times to know that I am in a spiritual war and my enemy is a liar. And he has some power to affect my thinking. So whenever it feels good to sit in those hard feelings and accusations and blaming, whenever it feels good to sit there, I know that is sort of my enemy, right? Satan, the powers of darkness, that is they are, in a sense, winning in my heart right then. And they are actively working against my good. So we have to recognize that. I'm very competitive. So maybe this is only for the competitive people that are listening, but I don't want to lose to my enemy. So if my enemy is sort of having the upper hand, then that that puts me into look, this is a battle that I need to fight, and it is fought in my heart and in my mind, but I have to know that it's a battle. I think a lot of times people start having these hard feelings and thoughts, and they trust them. You cannot be trusting yourself when you are stuck in this negativity and hard feelings and accusations and blame. You cannot trust yourself because you most naturally are on the side of darkness. We are born in sin, and part of what that means is that we have a propensity, we have a taste for the darkness. We like it over there. We have to purposefully choose to come over to the light, and God helps us to and empowers us to do that, but we have to choose it. Otherwise, most naturally, we will drift toward the darkness. We need to fight against that. So if I can kind of wake up to the fact that, oh, the fight is on, the battle is happening now, and it's happening in me. One thing that I've found to be very helpful as like the next step is typically I will get angry. I will, like my experience, I tend to get angry a lot. I like pretty much everything turns into anger, sadness, overwhelmedness, hunger, you name it, it all pretty much turns into anger. But even in putting it that way, you can hear that anger is a secondary emotion. There are things under the anger that is really driving these feelings of anger, blame, and these thoughts. So what I have had to learn to do is I need to talk out my anger, either between myself and God through prayer, like, God, why am I so angry? And work it out. So either between me or God, or between me and a friend, or between me and myself with a journal, or just walking things through with myself. I use questions like, why am I angry about this? And that leads me to questions like, what am I afraid of? That thing that I'm angry about, if it happened, what would be bad about that? Why would I be afraid of that? Or what would I want? So what I do is I use those questions, what am I afraid of? And what do I want, to dig deeper past the anger to find out what I actually care about. I try to discover the core fears and desires that are under that anger. Because once you can do that, then scripture really starts coming alive. Scripture doesn't say too much about, let's say, vacations. That's one of the things that has been on my mind recently. We have a vacation coming up, and as we're planning it, there's some things that sort of aren't the way that I want them to be, and Sandy never listens to me and all this kind of stuff, right? Scripture doesn't say a lot about what ratio you should stay in versus go out on a vacation. But it does say a lot about God's provision in our life, about celebrating and having joy, about spending time with those that you love. Like, all of those things are going to be those fears and desires that you started being angry about. So once you get down to those fears and desires, then scripture is really going to start speaking to you. So then you've identified the fears and desires that you have whenever you just can't stop being angry at your spouse. Now, go deeper. The next step in my process is imagine the worst case scenarios of your fears. What would that look like? Get specific. The question is, what promises of God would give me actual real comfort in those worst case scenarios? And if I can find some promises that give actual comfort, then what that means is that I need to have peace in the here and now. All the way back up in sort of the surface level of the day-to-day life, if I know that there is comfort in worst case scenarios, then that's how I need to fight in this spiritual battle in my heart. I need to fight for peace and love. One practical way to do that, the next step for me, is pray about it. Pray for my spouse. Pray to God for my own heart. I need to sort of put myself before God and not just let myself sort of spiral around myself, my own thinking, my own fears, my own desires, but put myself in a position where I'm accountable to God. And then very practically, after all that, often I'm still kind of pretty worked up, but usually at that point, I'm able to serve first and ask questions later. If you can put your hands to work serving your spouse, it is going to be very difficult to stay stuck in these things that you are running through your mind and your hard feelings. So that is the process that I have used throughout the years to fight these spiritual battles when I just am stuck being mad at my spouse for something. I have to admit that the problem is in me, that there is a spiritual war to be fought in this. I have to see anger as a secondary emotion, and I have to get to my fears and desires of why I'm angry. Then I have to seek comfort in the promises of God on those specific fears and desires so that I can then go and serve. That's what I have to do. My question for you is, which of those three parts of the process do you want to take for yourself and do a little bit more, or maybe add to your process, or start doing for the first time? Now, one thing you should probably never do when you are stuck in the middle of some of those really hard feelings is try to communicate with your spouse. In all likelihood, you will commit at least one, if not multiple, of the 7 deadly sins of marriage communication. Specifically, there's one of those 7 deadly sins that is called a hot start. What that is either through tone or body language or words, judgment and separation and distance gets communicated right at the very start of an interaction. When that happens, more likely than not, the interaction is not going to go well. The interaction had a hot start. And if you're hot under the collar, already aggravated, already upset, you're more than likely going to communicate that and it will be a hot start. So that is one of the 7 deadly sins of marriage communication. There are 6 other ones that most of them have really quick fixes. And I want to give you a copy of the 7 deadly sins of marriage communication. You can use the link in the description of this episode to get your copy. Find out what those sins are and how to stop them so that you can build a life-giving marriage for you and your spouse. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.